I can't believe I'm finally doing this. I've been working my whole life to get to the point where I feel I'm finally ready for this chapter. Fans were given t-shirts with the seniors' names on it.
Football Sunday, but we have some college hoops action.
Ariel, show us what you're seeing.
We actually had to move locations.
Going Friday here.
This is something I've wanted to do for a long time, but I'll be honest, I was really nervous about it.
So bet to us first. The Cowboys have made it a point the last 2 weeks to get my Southpaws and shout out to the Colorado Rockies. Bandwagon, get on it. You can't argue he's not the best and one of the most imposing players in baseball.
Mrs. Epstein, prop queen.
I'm the prop queen, Ariel Epstein.
Epstein over here.
You know when you have a gut feeling that says, just go do it? The Prop Queen Pod is finally debuting Friday, March 28th. See you there, 5 p.m. Eastern Time, live streaming on Twitch, X, and YouTube. Follow along at Prop Queen Sports. Oh my gosh, I finally did it. I've been waiting so long. You guys have no idea. Pretty much since the Super Bowl, I said the Prop Queen Pod has to become a thing. It just has to happen at the exact right time. Ideally, opening day could have been the right time, but of course I decided that Billy's and enjoying opening day is a holiday, so we're doing it the day after. Welcome to the Prop Queen Pod, everybody. I'm Ariel Epstein, known as the Prop Queen here in the sports betting space. So excited for you all to be joining me Monday through Friday, 5 to 6 p.m. Eastern Time. I love 5 p.m. 5 p.m. also means that it's like happy hour, we can all enjoy, and we're going to go and win some money. So a lot of things with the sports betting space, and I want to make sure that everything is going well. My mom says that it's not working for her, but it looks like 261 of you it's working for. So hopefully this live stream is working out okay, and she just doesn't know how to use technology. It's a whole new ball game here with these live streams, and we've got a lot of great guests. They're going to come on live to talk about everything that we need to know for today, whether it's March Madness, the NBA, Major League Baseball. First up, it's going to be my good friend Mid-Major Matt. He's really good at college hoops props. He's also the mastermind behind the legendary Strikeout prop spreadsheet that has hit at close to like 60% throughout baseball season. Mark Feinsand, MLB.com national reporter. He's going to add some professionalism, class, and credibility to this show. He's going to come on and talk about what he predicts is going to happen in Major League Baseball this year, along with some individual player awards. NBA is going to be discussed with my good friend Hakeem Profit. And yes, that is his last name. So we got to make you some money. I've got a little surprise in store for Hakeem too. He just has no idea what I'm going to show you guys. Sorry, Hakeem. But the sports betting business is an absolute mess right now. I've been in and out of jobs for 5 years. I've been, and you've been probably following along with me, I've been along with MLB Network, NBA TV, FanDuel, MGM, Fanatics, PointsBet, you name it. I've been with everybody, and just no one seems to know what to do with the gambling space. In fact, the biggest thing in the gambling space that's been a success is a spaces that has ripped everybody in the gambling community. I'm trying to bring some credibility back to the space because I have so many friends in TV who say to me all the time, how on earth are you in the sports betting space? It's so toxic. That's so bad. Why do we have this horrible reputation in this sports betting business that we all just hate each other? Maybe we should all try to beat the books and try to work together. That's exactly what we're going to do today is try to work together. Yeah, so already getting hate. Why are you watching? Don't even understand. So it's like in this betting space when people say they have to teach people how to bet smarter. People don't know what to do when trying to give out bets on all these TV networks. They don't know how to promote it in a fun, entertaining way. And that's exactly what I'm here to do with all of you. It kind of reminds me of when my brother was taking math class and his teacher's like, I hate the new way they teach math, but we have to teach it this way. So I decided I'm done with the whole employer thing for now. And we're just going to do things the way I think they should be done, which is bring on smart guests. We're going to make you some money. And I'm going to help you as well with all the different things that I've been doing, whether it's in the NBA, tracking how players do with or without certain star players, or in Major League Baseball, my strikeout prop spreadsheet, fishy lines in Major League Baseball. Best bets are going to come up at the end of the show for me, but we'll be giving them out, of course, throughout the show. Yesterday was my absolute favorite day of the year, opening day. I like it more than my birthday. I had a blast. Of course, over 5.5 strikeouts for Carlos Rodon. Gave it out on the Prop Queen newsletter. He had 7. But of course, I'm sitting in my seats. I already am looking at X, and X tells me that I'm already a loser. I'm like, how am I a loser? And then I realized that Michael King already was on the mound around 3, 4 o'clock. So he lost. So 1-1 on strikeout props yesterday. But of course, all people saw was what I posted to social media. So people were already ripping me for Carlos Rodon. They didn't know about Carlos Rodon if they didn't subscribe to the newsletter. They already were ripping me for Michael King not going over 5.5 Ks. He ended up with 3, got absolutely rocked by the Braves early and got pulled. Fine. The Cubs yesterday, underdogs, plus 110. They cash on the money line. They get the 10-6 win over the Arizona Diamondbacks. I'm going to talk about this a little bit later. In Major League Baseball, when you've got an ace on the mound, especially at home, like Zach Gallen yesterday, the line moved 20 cents against the D-backs since Sunday, and it stayed that way on Thursday. The Cubs, they played already 2 games in Tokyo. Justin Steele already got a start. Gallen hasn't been as great in the last couple of years. His numbers have been dropping. I've got another fishy line very similar to that, which I'm going to discuss later on into the show. So make sure to stay tuned. But please, everybody, let's just stop ripping each other apart for losers. Like already getting some of it in the mentions. So thank you for Go Birds. He said, shout out to Ariel. You helped me big time in baseball season. That's what we like to hear. Thank you very much. Red Sox, Yankees. I actually like the Orioles. I've been saying that. Speaking of the Orioles, yesterday, Adley Rutschman looked absolutely incredible. The Orioles, I said last week, 16-1. Absolutely love them to win the World Series, at least to get there, and then you could start hedging out. They look great. And I'm going to overreact. I will overreact to one game because the Orioles bats looked like absolute fire against the Blue Jays ace Jose Barrios yesterday. See how they bounce back today. However, the pitching staff, of course, is that a concern in Baltimore? Absolutely. We are just not going to worry too much. 2 years ago, 103 wins. Brandon Hyde, the manager, led them to the division. They didn't have Corbin Burns. Grayson Rodriguez will come back. Maybe the O's get another piece, but Bautista, Cano, that is going to be absolutely huge for this group. I know Mid-Major Matt is about to hop in and join. Jessica Brands, hello. Thank you, everybody, for joining. We got so many viewers. So Mid-Major Matt's going to hop on in just a couple minutes, and we're going to talk college hoops props, which I think he's absolutely insane for betting on player props in college basketball. But everybody needs something to root for when they're watching. Had a great time yesterday. Shout out to Billy's Sports Bar also for having the games on after the Yankees game. Absolute blast. I'm going to bring Matt in now so we could talk some of that college hoops. Mid-Major Matt, thank you for coming on. Welcome to the Prop Queen Pod.
Always glad to be here and glad to talk about 2 of my favorite sports.
Well, first, I want everybody to know that Mid-Major Matt and I have worked together since probably 2019, 2020, and we have never met in real life.
Nope, never met. And we even went to the same school. We still never met.
Still never met, but listen, we work together every day of baseball season. The Strikeout prop spreadsheet, electric. We have been cashing in on Strikeout props. I want to start with college hoops first because I just went on a rant about baseball. So college basketball, what would you say is the biggest difference in betting props with college players versus pro?
Well, first off, not every state has it. For the most part, I can't bet on them here in Virginia. So, I just recently discovered an app which, you're allowed to. But I think the part is that these are college kids. They have off nights. And so, you may have all these numbers that support something that happens. Case in point, last night, we talked about in the newsletter Tyrese Proctor for Duke, who had 6 threes or more in 3 straight games. He had 1 last night. So, all the numbers can point to something, but, we're talking about 18, 19, 20, 21-year-old kids. And sometimes they just have bad nights, which I feel like in the NBA, it doesn't happen as much because you kind of have an idea night after night how these guys are going to go.
NBA players, especially 2 years into the league, they always just have the same role. I tell people all the time, you could bet NBA props, never watch a game. You always get the numbers. And I just can't with college players. But you're going to do it tonight. Ole Miss, Michigan State, just after 7 p.m. Eastern time is tip. What props do you like?
Yeah, so it's interesting because in a good way and a bad way, I like going to the players who aren't the number one option always. And so, like, last night I went to a couple guys who I wanted to make threes for Alabama, and it seemingly they did not. Alabama took 50 plus 3-point attempts against BYU. So the handicap was right. We just picked the wrong players because obviously Mark Sears was amazing last night. So tonight, when you look at this Michigan State game, Michigan State is a team that loves to share the basketball. 61.1% of their baskets have had assists. And you look at Ole Miss, 57.4% of the baskets they allow, they've also had assists. So what we're going to look at now is the assists. And most people are going to look at Jeremy Fears Jr. His number is a little higher, but his over is very juicy right now. And that all depends on your juice tolerance. If you like taking juicy numbers that you have more confidence in, then you would look at his over. But if you're looking at somebody else here, Trey Holloman is a guy who has a lower number, 3.5. He's gone over that number in 2 straight in 4 of his last 6 games. So if you're looking for somebody away from the number one option, Trey Holloman's a guy who gets a lot of assists. The other place you can look is at rebounds tonight. Ole Miss is not good rebounding the ball. They've given up 22 offensive rebounds in their first 2 games this tournament. Jace Richardson is a 3.5 rebounding number. He's gone over this in 7 of his last 9 games. So as I said, these trends seem really good, but in an off night, they may not hit. So we can at least provide the numbers. I think that's the best part of the newsletter, Ariel, is that we provide these numbers and we at least educate people for the bets that they may or may not want to take.
Right. People always, especially my friends, look at a number. Oh, yeah, he loves to shoot the 3. He's going over. No, everything these books are doing is so sharp. It's by 1 point. So everybody really has to look at these averages and these numbers, because you don't just want to blindly bet these props out of nowhere. Michigan State, they're a team to me that between this game or next game in the Elite Eight, they always end up like losing on Tom Izzo somewhere this weekend. Like, it's just their time to lose. But Michigan and Auburn got another game, 9:39 p.m. Eastern time. Prop in this game, Matt?
Yeah, Trey Donaldson's going to be the guy that gets a lot of focus and attention here. Trey Donaldson used to play for Auburn. Now he's a star at Michigan. And I think a lot of people are going to play the revenge angle, and they're going to look at his points. And I'm not saying that the points isn't a bad one, but if you look at his assists, 3.5 is his number for assists. He's gone over this in 7 of his last 10 games. Now, Auburn tries to minimize assists. When you beat Auburn, you've got to do it a lot by yourself. It's better athletes doing things against Auburn because their defense is so good. So the handicap works for the Trey Donaldson side of things, but the Auburn side is a little bit tougher. Maybe look at a points plus assists kind of prop for Trey Donaldson. But if you want to, 3.5 is a low number that he's kind of gone over quite a bit. And maybe he wants to get revenge by getting his other guys involved and not just him.
You've got one more also, Purdue and Houston, just after 10 p.m. Eastern time. It's Friday night, so everybody's got to stay up anyway. I'm sure you're all doing something. Houston, really tough, great defense. Where are you looking in this one?
Yeah, Houston's one of the best defenses in the country, and I think they'll play even better because Gonzaga was able to get them. They scored over 70 on Houston. That doesn't happen a lot. Now, I'm not bitter as a Gonzaga fan that we had this game in the round of 32. This was a Sweet 16 or an Elite 8 matchup, but the committee messed Gonzaga up. But the one thing you can do against Houston is get assists. 287th in assists allowed per field goals on defense. If you look at the 2 games so far, Ryan Nembhard, the best point guard in America, probably 11 assists of Gonzaga's 19 against Houston. Go back to that first round, SIUE. They only scored 40 points, but they had 15 made baskets and 11 of them were assisted. So for this one, I actually am going to go with the obvious guy, Braden Smith. His number 6.5. He has the second best assist rate in America, and he's gone over this in 17 of his last 23 games. Purdue has assists on 57.5% of their baskets. So by the numbers, I'm looking at the guy, Braden Smith, that if there's going to be a lot of baskets scored by Purdue tonight, which maybe not, he's going to be the guy who gets the assists. So take a look at his over.
See, everyone, you don't just have to have a bracket. You don't just have to play in a survivor pool, which I enjoy a lot, by the way, survivor pools in March Madness. You can bet on player props, and you can sweat these out with Mid-Major Matt. So Mid-Major Matt and I spend literally every night and literally every morning on this Strikeout prop spreadsheet. I wake up at 6 in the morning. I do the Peloton. Then I go look at the Strikeout props. I insert usually the props in the morning for like what the opening line is. Usually by the time it's 10 p.m., I'm exhausted, and Matt has somehow already like filled out the entire strikeout prop spreadsheet, telling everybody what each starting pitcher has already done, whether they go over and under their strikeout prop, how certain lineups do against all these starting pitchers. We get all the averages of all these lineups. So people usually, Matt, love to bet on just like a pitcher. They're just like, oh, yeah, Zach Gallen, he strikes out, guys. He's an ace. No, you have to look at lineups. The Houston Astros don't strike out a lot. The Padres don't strike out a lot. The Braves, they win. They strike out a lot, Matt. And I think people just don't understand wins and losses aren't correlated to strikeouts.
Yeah, my Phillies, they strike out a lot, and they did yesterday. But of course, they said it was the Shadows, so we'll see what happens because they play another 4 o'clock game coming up on Saturday. Maybe there's some value on Jake Irvin's strikeouts number because the Phillies have already made the excuse that the Shadows were the reason why they struck out so much yesterday. But yeah, I think people need to, like, the prop market is a market that if you spend some time, you can find some advantages. The problem is I think a lot of people dip into the prop market and then they're like, well, I lost. I'm not going to continue to play them. So I think you really have to have the dedication to look at the numbers and do the research and go over tendencies and things like that, or else you're just going to be kind of, cherry picking numbers and you're just not going to do very well in this market.
This market tonight, you're going to look at a pitcher that's making his debut for his new team. Veteran Charlie Morton is someone you texted me about this morning. You were looking at his under 3.5 strikeouts, Orioles debut against the Toronto Blue Jays. My dad's not going to like this because he's a homer. So Morton under 3.5 Ks, you still like that?
Yeah, and it's so funny because last night it was plus 130, and I was like, maybe I'll get a 4.5 and I could still take the under and get a better number. And then instead, when we woke up, the juice was heavily on the under, and it popped up to a minus 105 and a minus 110. But I like to look at the spring training stuff just for a little bit to kind of see pitch
You
counts.
do.
I do. That's why I hate the first week or two of the season, because I do look at the spring training stuff. Now, some of the veterans don't really care about spring training because they've done it so many times.
Tell people what you look at, by the way, and why.
Well, so I look at the pitch counts for the most part. And then I also look at, who's working on their strikeout pitches, who's kind of, you read the headlines afterwards. They're like, oh, so-and-so is working on a fourth pitch. So-and-so is just, he was just trying to get through and get a certain amount of pitches under his arm and stuff like that. That's why I hate the first couple of weeks, because I look at way too much stuff. But when you look at
helped
Charlie
me yesterday. I'll tell you that after. I'll say that after. Well, you didn't really help me. I didn't listen to you, but continue. Go to Charlie Morton.
So Charlie Morton has not thrown a ton of pitches in the spring. Remember, he was a recent signing, so he has not gone deep in any sort of spring outings. Toronto's pretty good when it comes to the K prop unders. Their lineup has a lot of contact, but I kind of only expect Charlie Morton to go 3, 4, maybe 5 at the most innings. By the way, you'll notice most places do not have Charlie Morton's outs, which is another thing that Ariel and I look at, because the outs props almost always tell the story of how long we think these pitchers are going to go. No one's putting up an outs prop for Charlie Morton, so makes me think that he's not going to go very long. And so I'll go with the 3.5. I just don't think he's going out there throwing strikeout pitches early in his season this year.
Toronto also did have one of the lower K rates in the league last year against righties. Morton on the road, everybody. It is a fade spot. Morton at home, when he was a Brave, awesome. Morton on the road, even against high K rate teams, you couldn't trust him. So Morton's on the road in Toronto tonight. Now, going back a little bit to what I was saying with Matt, yesterday I said my favorite strikeout prop was Michael King over 5.5 Ks. You look at his numbers against high K rate teams last year. Michael King was electric. I mean, we are talking 7-8 strikeouts a game against these teams that are top or bottom 10 in the league in strikeouts. And yet, here we go. Mid-major Matt says, no. I said, stop. Shut up, Matt. I'm going to bet it. He goes, okay, but I'm warning you. He really didn't throw that much in spring training. You should watch out. I said, whatever. He's fine. It lost. So Matt does know what he's talking about, just so everybody knows. Sometimes we fight. We fight very early in the morning. It's okay. I get a little angry. We each bet it anyway, and then we say, ha. Jack Leiter, he's someone that I'm a little nervous about. You said you like Jack Leiter today. I saw his over 4.5. I saw him now at 5.5 against Boston. Why are you liking Jack Leiter's over after an iffy start last year as a rookie?
Yeah, it wasn't one of my official plays. I actually decided to cut it out because I was a little worried, with these young guys early on in the season. But why I would consider it, and certainly at the 4.5, not at the 5.5. So if your book has 5.5, don't take the over. And it's certainly probably a no play. But I mean, you know what we're talking about when we talk about Boston's lineup. Trevor Story is like a walking strikeout. I mean, his K prop percentage last year, it was awful, absolutely awful. And I think almost 2 years ago, it was over 30%. And so when you have a guy in a lineup that's going to strike out a lot, that is one batter that this pitcher is going to see probably twice. And there's two strikeouts potentially. So, in the end, I didn't decide to necessarily go with this one. But, Boston's lineup is something that's going to be worth looking at going forward. They've got a lot of young guys. Young guys, when they start out in the major leagues, their K rates are pretty high. So going forward, Boston's going to be a place that I'm looking at. Like, it's a shame. And I think Kumar Rocker is facing the Red Sox, I think, on Sunday. He might be an over guy because he is a huge strikeout guy going up against a lineup that potentially strikes out a lot. That one I might be looking at on Sunday as an over.
I was shocked at this game with Boston and Texas tonight, 8 p.m. start here on the East Coast. I thought the number moved from Texas plus 102 to minus 102. Even though if you see a 5.5 on lighter, you don't want to take it. And it does, again, strikeouts aren't always correlated to wins and losses. The book's essentially saying they like lighter because he went up from 4.5 to 5.5. And the Rangers flipped from plus 102 to minus 102. Boston was minus 120. It was a slight move, but minus 116 still. For the line to be moving in favor of lighter, maybe they're expecting him to look much better this time around.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing about the young guys, and he obviously got a couple starts last year, so that helps. The other thing that we like to do is look at some of the other pitcher props that also help us tell the story. The hits allowed, the earned runs allowed. Those are some things that tell us, all right, what's his earned runs allowed number? Is it 1.5 with a lean to the over? Is it 2.5 with a lean to the under? And so that's how you kind of use the other props that are out there to tell a story for a pitcher. Now, as always, the leans don't always win. So like we've seen, yesterday we saw a couple of the ones that were heavy to the over or the under and they didn't win. But it's always good to kind of look at that sort of thing and see what kind of story Vegas is trying to tell us with regards to how they think these pitchers are going to go on any given start.
There was one prop you texted me this morning. I said, I looked at it. I wasn't sure about it. I left it behind, actually left it in the dust. Then you mentioned it, and I've brought it back to life. I like it a lot. Reynaldo Lopez to go under 4.5 strikeouts against the Padres tonight. Why do you like that for the Braves righty?
Yeah, the Padres are a team that we love playing unders on. I mean, when you can get a 4.5.
Unders are nothing.
Yeah, exactly. Much like Seattle's overs are nothing. So, Padres are unders are nothing. And when you look at Reynaldo Lopez, he faced them twice last year, and he gave up a lot of hits in the one start. He gave up over 10 hits in the one start against them. And if you look at his spring numbers, he's not striking guys out in the spring. And I think that kind of carries over early on here. And so we're getting a 4.5 here with a guy who struggles on the road against a lineup that makes a lot of contact. So, yeah, I really do like the Reynaldo Lopez under 4.5 here in this sort of situation.
I was looking at this earlier. Also, I was writing it for the later newsletter. And he was averaging, let me see where I had this. He had 4 and 2 strikeouts against the Padres last year. San Diego, one of the lowest strikeout rates in baseball, like we said. 61% of right-handers went under their strikeout prop last year against the Padres. So again, Padres always to me, just unders or nothing. Matt, what else would you say is a strikeout prop trend that maybe either stood out to you yesterday or something people should keep in mind going forward this season?
Well, Dodgers versus lefties. I mean, eventually they're going to face a righty, which is tonight. But so far, I mean, the Dodgers, against the lefties last year, the under was highly profitable. We saw Skubal struggled to get strikeouts yesterday. We saw that in the very first start of the season, the Dodgers went under their K prop. They would have gone under against Justin Steele, but he stayed in a little bit longer, and that was our first last batter loss of the season. Probably won't be the last, which is very frustrating. But I mean, the Dodgers against lefties last year were amazing. They were averaging, I believe, under 4 strikeouts a game against lefties last year. And so you're going to see sometimes these high numbers for these aces, but that's going to be some advantage for us. That's going to be some advantage for people blindly betting on Tarik Skubal overs because he always used to just go over. He would be tremendous. So I think going against lefties with the Dodgers and go into the under. I think that's going to be something we're looking at all season long.
I want to pull this up. I call this, I had this new segment idea called propaganda. I give credit to my brother for like coming up with this segment idea. So basically, and I hope you can see this, it's the biggest or the most bet on props at BetMGM tonight. There are a lot of strikeout props here. Tyler McGill under strikeouts, Jack Leiter under hits allowed, Cease over strikeouts, Keller under strikeouts. Which of these, Matt, might stand out to you that maybe, okay, either the public's right or you would fade them?
So, I mean, I like the Cease one. I mean, so me personally, and Ariel and I have discussed this a lot, like juice tolerance. I'm not playing the over strikeouts at minus 155 for Cease, but I can see it. I make a case for Cease. I mean, once again, it's what should have happened potentially yesterday with King. But here's the thing. Like, I think a lot of people are looking at Keller from last year. Last year, Keller made his debut against the Marlins and would have gone under this number. But like, I don't trust a lot of these Marlin hitters that we don't have a lot of stuff on yet because most of them are rookies or very young players. So I would almost think there's a little bit of value on his over. Now, it's not an official play, but if we're looking at this list here, I wouldn't be jumping, and certainly not at minus 165. My goodness, please don't ever take a prop, a K prop or any sort of prop at minus 165. That's just ridiculous. So, look, the fact that the public is doing this is kind of scary, but I would almost lean slightly to the over with Mitch Keller there.
People say this to me, you're crazy. Why don't you like to lay minus 165? I'm like, I don't lay that on a prop. I understand people will lay that in UFC. People might lay that on a money line somewhere. In props, Matt, I just have no interest in laying anything above, I say minus 150. I know you're about minus 160.
Yeah, I'm about where you are, minus 150. But like, here's the thing. If you take a minus 170 and it's sure to win, like you've done your research and it's going to win, and they go out there first pitch, they hurt their arm and that's it, you lose. Like, there's just too much variability in regards to these props. And, in basketball, guy gets in foul trouble, doesn't play as much as we thought he did. Your minus 170 doesn't look as good. And I get the same reaction you do too. It's just personal preference. That's why there's all sorts of different gamblers in our industry. There's people, I mean, there's a guy who's very famous in our industry who gives out to everybody. He gave out Duke's money line against Mount St. Mary's. It was like minus 9,000 or whatever. And he's supposedly a famous gambler. But like, I'm never going to do that. I'm never going to give that out because, by the way, the 2 times that the 16 seeds beat the 1, you put a whole lot of money out there and you just lost it. So I think there's different gamblers and different perspectives for this sort of thing, but you and I kind of agree. Minus 150 is the highest we go. And even then, we have to be really sure about it.
Mid-Major Matt, tell everybody where they could find you and what you're up to these days.
Yeah, at Mid-Major Matt on Twitter, and certainly part of your newsletter as well. Really looking forward to hammering the pitcher props, whether it's hits allowed, strikeouts, outs, whatever. As we get more data, the numbers will be a whole lot better. And I host my own radio show here in Richmond, and that's a lot of fun. And certainly you can check that out. I post about it on Twitter.
Everyone give him a follow, Mid-Major Matt. He'll be on this show very often since we basically do this every morning anyway and hash out strikeout props. Matt, enjoy the games tonight.
Thank you.
So we have just a few more minutes, and then Mark Feinstein's going to join the show. He's MLB.com's national reporter, writer. He used to work with the Yankees at the Daily News. That's how we knew each other. Also, really funny story about Mark, which I tell literally every time he comes on. Mark played fantasy football, I think, fantasy football with my dad, baseball with my dad. And they've known each other a really long time. Mark's actually known me since I was like 10. My dad told him that I wanted to be a broadcaster. I wanted to be the Yankees sideline reporter. Mark said, okay, whatever. You okay, Darren, whatever. All these years later, I get this internship, 2015, with the New York Yankees. I say to Mark, I didn't really do it, but I did it. I'm an intern. I'm in the building with you. And ever since, Mark and I have been super close. So it's really fun that we worked at MLB Network together. You can catch him there on MLB Network. And it's funny. I always say, no matter how long you're in this business, people don't care. People are still going to troll you. People are still going to act like you're not credible. Mark's been doing this for so long that people still are giving him crap on social media for the teams that he thinks are going to be successful. And we're going to talk about that when he comes on. But Mark and I have a lot of similar thoughts when it comes to the World Series this year. You already know one of my thoughts because I just completely overhyped the Orioles from yesterday. Not going to take it back. Do believe in the Orioles. Mark's got a lot of other teams that he's looking at. You know, the AL Central, really interesting. I know there's a lot of people in the AL Central that are underdogs that maybe like have some value. I like the Tigers at plus 270. I gave that out last week. I said AJ Hinch, absolutely great manager. And that Tigers team is young and fun, and they've got a chip on their shoulder. So they want to prove themselves. Plus, you've got a great ace in Tarek Skubal. So Mark's going to join us to talk about the Central a little bit as well. But I really just want to tell people, like, people are going to doubt you. People are going to tell you, like, don't do it. Like, you're not going to make it. They'll scoff at you. Say, haha, very funny. You want to be on MLB Network? Haha. Yeah, okay. I wish I could, like, show you this sign I have. It's Derek Jeter. It's sitting here in my office, and it says, there may be people with more talent than you, but there's no excuse for anyone to work harder than you do. And when you work that hard, I promise you things are going to pay off. And that's exactly what I'm doing right now. So I really, really appreciate all of you people who are sitting here watching. We have 1,900 views so far. And that's just like amazing for me to hear. So again, we could look at this propaganda sheet that I know Matt and I were talking about as we wait for Mark to pop in. So he was saying about Tyler McGill under 4.5 strikeouts against Houston. Houston's one of those teams that I always will just bet unders against. I very rarely will bet an over against the Houston Astros when it comes to strikeout props. Boston Red Sox, they're very much an overs team as well. That's for sure. Dylan Cease, the strikeouts for him, way too juice, minus 155, but the Braves do strike out a lot. I lost on that yesterday. And that's the thing with the Braves that's just kind of tough because the Braves are a team like yesterday where you could go up against the Michael King, for example, and King could be lights out, great strikeout pitcher. But then you get hit hard and you've got to take that into consideration, obviously. So when I see a game where there's like a fishy line and that fishy line, unfortunately, ends up moving in a direction against the pitcher who I like an over against, sometimes I like to just double check that and say, I'm probably not going to be able to do that because of, you know, if let's say you like an over and a pitcher gets smacked hard, then you're not going to be, he's probably going to get taken out of the game pretty quickly. So I'm going to check in. I know the funny thing about this is I've done a lot of TV and I know this is going to sound like super wrong, but I've never had to like run the production of it myself, plus host it, plus figure out the guests. I'm doing this all solo. So day one, everybody, please bear with me. I guess I could look at some of the comments. A lot of you are trolls. So like, I don't know, get a life. But let's see. Eric DeLong said, fade the Red Sox all season, make money. This is interesting because I at first, of course, like everybody else, was super high on the Red Sox because of everything that happened in the offseason. But then everybody was on the Red Sox. And the line for the Orioles was still 16-1 to win the World Series, but the Red Sox were 18-1. So I'm like, yeah, that doesn't sound right. So off the Red Sox. The book's not high on them. Jessica Brand, she's awesome. She was an MLB researcher with me at MLB Network and has helped me a ton. Flaherty over K's was an early take for her, she said. And she says, K props are the best for my money, relatively less prone to variance. And I think could be a strong amount of variables to be given to a model. So definitely something to keep in mind because it's strikeout props to me, I think are very beatable. And you should also follow Jessica Brand. She's awesome at giving out all these kinds of props and bets. But yeah, so Flaherty over K's. Okay, Jess, I think you explained to me why you liked that one earlier today, but I don't really remember your explanation. I actually should go and follow. Ski, good to see other better supporting each other. Yes, Ski's actually coming on. And I don't know if Mark is popping in. He has not answered. And Hakeem goes, you'll get used to it. Yeah, I'll get used to it. But Hakeem, if you want to pop in now, it doesn't look like Mark's coming in. He might have forgotten about us. So if you want to pop in, come in and let's talk NBA because I've got a lot of really funny, not a lot, but I do have a really funny video to show everybody, and Hakeem's probably going to kill me for showing it, but I don't care. Me and Hakeem are going to talk NBA. We talk it every morning. I think this is important too for people to realize it's okay to have other friends that you want to bet with, talk things through with. I'm really good with baseball, so I know there are certain spots that maybe my numbers tell me, okay, I like an over and under on a strikeout prop, but maybe it's not the best game for it. In the NBA, I trust Hakeem. Hakeem is so good at the NBA, and I always will text him and say, hey, I like this prop. What do you think about it in the game? He'll tell me the coach said this. Nuh-uh, we don't like him anymore. And I'm like, okay, Hakeem. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. We could talk through some NBA. So I did give out some NBA in the newsletter today, and the NBA. I was talking first about my favorite thing, which is the Charlotte Hornets when they're without LaMelo Ball. The Charlotte Hornets without LaMelo Ball, there are trends upon trends. First off, and I guess I will. Oh, Hakeem's popping in, so we could talk about this together. Heck yeah! What's up, Hakeem?
Good to be on with you. Appreciate you
Oh
having
my
me.
gosh. I'm excited because Hakeem's had me on his shows so many times, and now it's finally my turn. Before we get to the NBA, because I'm going to tell everybody about these trends with LaMelo, without LaMelo, with LaMelo, we could talk through that. We've got to show everybody this. And I'm sorry.
I'm scared now.
Do you know what it is?
I have an idea, but I don't know.
Okay, everybody, I'm just telling you, when you go to Vegas, you know how in Vegas it makes you do bad things, like really bad. But this isn't that bad, but it felt bad in the moment. I had to go to Vegas for work. I was not happy about it because I already was in Vegas the week before for March Madness. So I texted Hakeem, who lives in Vegas. I said, I'm coming back. Let's just go catch dinner. We'll go to the craps table, throw a few dice, go to blackjack, hit some 21s.
We did all those things.
Hakeem says to me, let's go walk on Fremont Street. I said, I got to go to bed, Hakeem. Like, you can't keep me out like this. He goes, just come on. Let's just go outside. It's a Monday night. It's right there. It's a Monday night. There is a concert going on Fremont Street. We go to the concert. We're drinking rum and cokes, I think. And I look up. I said, oh, that looks fun. So on a Monday into a Tuesday at 2 a.m, here is Hakeem and I going down Fremont Street at 2 a.m. And there's Hakeem. And when I tell you, I did not feel good the next day.
By the way, nobody else will get me to do that.
And when you watch the beginning of the video, he's so nervous. He can't even look at me. I'm sitting there just absolutely excited. I am about to do something I've never done before. I couldn't wait. And Hakeem is sitting there like this. He's like, I hate heights.
I'm not the biggest fan of heights, no.
It was a great time. Okay, let's get some winners. And I guess we could talk.
One thing really quick.
What?
Before we talk basketball.
Okay.
Oh my God, I should have bet baseball yesterday. When I saw the score, I was like, I was right all along. How is he an ace?
Everybody has to know for the last 4 years, Hakeem hates Yusei Kikuchi. Hates him. Hakeem doesn't talk about baseball until like after the All-Star break. Most NBA people, right? Like they don't even care about the NBA till after Christmas. That's Hakeem with baseball. He doesn't care until basketball's over. All he does, though, he's like, Ariel, let me know when Yusei Kikuchi pitches. Let me know. And I said to him yesterday, guess who's pitching? He goes, oh, they're going to lose. He's not an ace. There you go.
Sure enough. Easy.
There you go. Okay, another thing that seems like easy money, and I hope I didn't just jinx it. Houston. First half. We going at it again today for the tournament?
I'm absolutely doing it. I mean, it's been an ATM for me for years. I looked at my phone today because somebody asked me, why do I even like Houston? Or they have no clue why I like Houston. But I've been doing this since like 2022. And it's crazy to think about it like that. But this year, they're 29-7 in the first half against the spread. And I look at this Purdue team tonight. I mean, they only beat 2 mid-majors, High Point and McNeese State, to make this Sweet 16. They weren't even playing well. Like they've lost 6 of their last 11 games. It's their first time seeing this Houston's defense. And when teams see them for the first time, it takes a little bit to adjust. So that's the basis of why we take the Houston first half. I told you the ATS numbers. They hold opponents to the lowest points per game in the first half at 26.1 points per game. They outscore them by a little bit over 10 points per game. And like I said, I've been following the Cougars for a few years. They've been bounced in the Sweet 16 in back-to-back seasons. I know Kevin Sampson is fired up for this one. I think they all come out fired up, and especially throw the first punch. So first half -4.5 is in my pocket, but honestly, I think it lasts the whole game.
You love basketball, just like the sport in general. And there has been a lot of heat on the NBA this year. Okay, rightfully so. Why? Like with someone who loves basketball, why?
I mean, there's so many reasons not to like the NBA right now, whether it's players getting rolled out every day. Imagine a family going and paying all this money to go take their kids to the game, and then the main players don't even play, and they'll get rolled out like 30 minutes before. That's a problem. It's not as entertaining to see people go out and shoot 89 threes every game. That's a problem. It's so many problems right now. The competitive nature, it's a lot of things wrong right now. I think they could shorten the season. I know they never will because of money, but NBA currently is not the NBA from 10 years ago. It's definitely changing.
I want to get people to at least, somewhat enjoy it if they like the NBA. So you got to make money off of it if you're going to do so.
Right.
You said earlier to me today, and I think I'm going to put this up. So these are the numbers I have, and I didn't add Tyler Kolek yet because there wasn't enough numbers. And I know that that's what you're looking at. But these are the numbers I have for tonight with the Knicks without Jalen Brunson against a team that's bottom 10 in rebounds allowed to their opponents. And that's the Bucks this year. They have allowed the 5th most rebounds per game to their opponents. Even with Giannis Antetokounmpo, this team allows a lot of rebounds. What would you say about any of these players for tonight's game or something off this board?
Well, honestly, I mean, the number one prop for me tonight, it's a play I love. It is not on this board at all. And I know you love a sample size. I'm sorry I don't have a big enough sample size for you, but hopefully the explanation can work out. I like Tyler Kolek. He used to play for Marquette. He was a baller over there. He has a really good feel for the game. And now he's getting an opportunity. Like the past 3 games, he's played 18 plus minutes because they don't have Brunson, like you have on there on the screen. And not only that tonight, but they're down Cameron Payne as well. So now Tyler Kolek has to start. So in his last 3 starts, he's played 18 plus minutes. He's had 7 plus assists. And if he's starting now, I think it's just a given that the minutes and the production should both go up as well. So it's a play I trust because of what I've watched every single game in college at Marquette and what I've seen so far with the opportunity that they've given him. I think both teams are in a travel situation. So defense, if anything, could be lacking a little bit here. I like Tyler Kolek over 6.5 assists. That's my best bet tonight in the NBA.
You know who's not on this list?
Your boo.
Mitchell Robinson is off the list. We do not talk about M-Rob. We don't.
He's banned.
We call him my ex. He's not. I've never met him.
Okay, my bad. I said boo. He's your ex.
No,
That is
because
right.
you like to mess with me.
Yeah.
He's not my boo. He's
What
my
else would I
ex.
do?
Like, we have broken up completely. I have actually, people don't know this. I was banned from talking about Mitchell Robinson on NBA TV.
And probably like 70% of that is probably my fault. So I'm sorry.
Oh man. No, okay. And then I've got one more. I can't do M-Rob. And I know Mark is waiting, but I'll get to him in a second. I have one more thing that I wanted to throw out there. Because I mentioned it before, so I don't want to leave people hanging. This trend of games without LaMelo Ball. I see the Hornets without LaMelo Ball. I get so excited when this happens, and that's so messed up. But there is no player in the league that I get more excited about being out than LaMelo Ball. Just Bridges and Williams alone. Williams tonight, 14.5 points is his prop. I like that over. Bridges, I always look to something like his assists or his rebounds. What is it about the Hornets without LaMelo Ball that stands out to you?
Honestly, they're going to need somebody to step up and score because he's a lot of their offense, whether it's orchestrating everybody and getting them involved or just scoring himself. So I think the players that rely on others to set them up are going to be the ones who struggle. Mark Williams could be one of those players as far as the scoring wise, not necessarily the rebounds wise. So I think, is that saying that the rebounds line is 9.5? I'll probably prefer his rebounds than points in this game. And then for Bridges, he's one of those players that I think has to step up if the Hornets are going to do anything because he can, create his shot a little bit better than some other guys. So
Yeah, you see those numbers spot on the points per game, which is why numbers are super important. But I always look rebounds or rebounds plus assists or assists on Bridges, so everyone can keep that in mind. Hakeem Profit,
really
his
quick,
last name's what?
one of my favorite things about talking the games with you and working with you is I can just watch the games and just talk, and then you just look at the numbers and you're like, okay, this checks out, this checks out.
Hakeem comes to me and he tells me about all these bets he likes, and I'm like, give me the sample size. We need the numbers, Hakeem. I don't just, but I will tell you this. In the playoffs, you are right. When it comes to the NBA, it is not about the numbers. It's about what coaches say. It's about the narratives. I give it to you. You have proven me wrong time and time again when I try to bet numbers in the NBA in the playoffs. It doesn't work.
Well, when we stop learning, we stop winning. At least we continue to learn.
Yeah, or be stubborn like me. So, Hakeem, thanks so much for popping on. His last name is Profit, and that's for a reason. He's going to help you make some money. Houston first half, and we're also going with the Tyler Kolek over assists. Thanks, Hakeem.
Thanks for having me. Talk to you later.
Okay, now we've got a good friend of mine, and I've got to get this down. Okay, here we go. Great friend of mine, Mark Feinsand. He is also, I have to congratulate him because it's 9 years. We were almost at a decade of you being the national reporter for MLB.com. You're at MLB Network. Finally worked together for a few years. Thanks for coming on, Mark.
My pleasure. Sorry, I was running a little late.
It's okay. You're a busy, very wanted man. And here's the thing. So you've been at MLB for 9 years and Yankees before that with the Daily News. So you've been around baseball a really long time. Every year, you release very nicely of you to give your predictions to everybody on social media. The same way we so kindly like to give out best bets or whatever it is in the gambling space. And yet, you still get roasted. Like, what is this? You still get roasted for just telling people what your thoughts are for your analysis of the season.
Yeah, I expect it. I mean, it's very simple. If you put out your predictions, which I do every year just for fun, the people who are on fans of the teams that you're not predicting to make the playoffs or that you're predicting not so great things for, like to let you know about it. And in this case, I picked the Mets to miss the playoffs, and Met fans weren't particularly happy with that. Same thing with a few other teams. The Diamondbacks fans weren't very happy with me. Mets fans weren't very happy with me. Astros fans weren't very happy with me, so they let me hear about it. But that's okay because, as I see in that tweet right there, last year when I put out my predictions and I had the Royals making the playoffs, most of people who responded to me were like, "The Royals in the playoffs, they lost 106 games last year. You're a moron." And I said, "Oh, I might be. This is not the idea of me getting my predictions wrong is not a new one." But once in a while, I have one or two that kick back and pay off. So I felt good about that. We'll see. I like to be a little out there with my predictions because what fun is it to just say every year, Tony's going to win the MVP and the Dodgers going to win the World Series?
No, it's definitely not fun. And we know that here on this show. So let's take a look at what Mark thinks is going to happen this year. I'm going to go to player awards first because, I love just individual player stuff. You vote, right? You vote for the awards?
So I vote. Usually I end up voting for one award. It depends on the year. Being in the New York market, there are more voters than there are votes. So they rotate it around. So it's
But you have an idea of what voters use in
Sure.
their brain for how they pick players for awards. So my question
Yes.
for MVP, which you have Bryce Harper, you have Bobby Witt Jr., and this might be cut off, so I'm going to take this banner away. You have both of them to win MVP. How much do the voters consider how good a team is in addition to just the individual player stats when when voting for MVP?
Generally, it depends on the voter. Some people say it's a matter of the player. Some people say I won't vote for a guy for MVP on a losing team because that team could have been a losing team without him. Personally, when I have voted for MVP in the past, where the team finishes does usually play some role for me. It's in the rare case where somebody has a season that's just, if Otani last year had been 50-50 for a team that won 81 games and finished out of the playoffs, he still may have won MVP because of how exceptional his season was. But I think in general, where a team finishes certainly plays some sort of role in where that person finishes in terms of MVP. Cy Young and Rookie of the Year, not as important, but for MVP, I think a lot of voters I think do take into account sort of where that team finished.
It makes sense. And that's also why it makes sense for Cy Young. You have some younger up and coming names in baseball. For example, Logan Gilbert, good at striking out batters. That's important. ERA, important. Why do you like Logan Gilbert for Cy Young?
He's done it for a couple of years now. He's been one of the better pitchers in the league. He's an innings horse. I always look to innings as a very important aspect of a Cy Young candidacy. If you can go out there and throw 200 innings, 200 quality innings, that really says something to me about, how good a guy's year is, especially in an era now where innings are just not something that we see very often. Mike King had about 180 last year with the Padres I think he had 173 in the regular season, got over 180 in the playoffs. He came into this year and said, 200, that's my goal this year. I want to throw 200 innings because that's something that not a lot of pitchers do. And it shows that you're making an impact start in and start out. And so I think, for Gilbert, who's been an innings horse, like you said, ton of strikeouts. I think the Mariners, as you can see in those predictions, I have the Mariners making the playoffs as a wild card. So I think it's going to be meaningful innings. Their pitching staff is insanely good. They have not been able to hit. I do like some of their lineup this year. I think Julio has a big bounce back year as well. He was my MVP pick last year, which didn't work out so well.
I think a lot of people felt that way.
Yeah, but I think Gilbert, Cole Reagans is another guy I think I thought about in terms of this award. My prediction, Cole would have been on that list before he got hurt. So, there's obviously there are several pitchers who are capable of going out there and putting up a Cy Young season, but Gilbert's been doing it for a few years, and I think he's one of the better pitchers in the American League.
Hey, you've got the Phillies facing the Orioles in the World Series, and I agree with you on the Orioles. Phillies on paper, they absolutely look great, but you like Bryce Harper MVP. He does it again?
I mean, Bryce is a guy who, he's won 2 MVPs. He won one of them 4 years ago. He certainly has the ability to go out there and put up a big year. Otani is the favorite. We're not going to argue with that. I think everybody looks at it and says if he goes out there and pitches this year and pitches the way we've seen him in the past and he puts up his normal numbers, it's going to be really hard for a voter to look at Otani's year if he puts up 40-plus home runs, whatever the steals end up being, and has one of his normal monster offensive seasons and goes out there and throws 120 innings or 130 innings of really quality baseball as well. It's hard to say that guy not winning an MVP. That said, it's boring to pick him every year. So I think looking at the non-Otani group, I think the Phillies are going to have a big year. Bryce has been one of the more consistent players. Obviously, he's got to stay healthy. That's the biggest key for him. But I just think that lineup, I know a lot of people are down on the Phillies in terms of they're getting older and a lot of their guys are getting to that 33, 34-year-old range. This might be the last great opportunity for the Phillies to go out there and in this window and really compete for a championship. And I just think Bryce, is a guy who likes that pressure. He thrives on it. And if the Phillies have as big of a year as I think they will, then I think he's going to be in that mix.
Keeping it in the National League, I love this. National League Manager of the Year. You've got Terry Francona, going to this fun, young Cincinnati Reds team. How do you see in just 1 year Tito getting it done and getting the Reds to the playoffs nonetheless in that wild card spot?
I probably am a victim of recency bias, but I was at Reds camp a few weeks ago, and the whole vibe there was completely different than it's been in several years. And I think when you look at the team, they've got a lot of really good young talent. They've got a lot of exciting players. Matt McClain is back this year. Ellie De La Cruz, I think, could be an MVP type candidate. Hunter Green, great young pitcher. They've got some other arms I really like. Rhett Lauder's on the way as one of their top young prospects. I think the NL Central is sort of a wide open situation. The Cubs did a lot to get better. The Brewers figure out a way every year. I still have the Brewers making the playoffs this year. I don't think the Pirates are ready as a whole. The Cardinals are taking a step backwards. So the Reds are that team to me that a few of their players said to me, we've believed in the past we were good enough to make the playoffs, but we didn't really have that guiding light showing us how to do it. And Tito has that team right now believing that it can be a playoff team. And when you look at the Reds coming off of a not a great season, Tito gets a hold of this team and gets them into that 85, 86, 87 win territory. Even if you're just competing for a playoff spot, I think he's going to get recognition in Manager of the Year voting. And I think the Reds are a team that probably goes into this season saying, I know the National League is really deep. I know there are teams like the Mets and the Diamondbacks who I don't have in the playoffs, who many people do, and it would not be surprising at all if both of those teams wound up in the playoffs.
I like the D-backs.
But I think the Reds are sitting there going, why not us? And I think look, you gonna go out there occasionally with a pick. Last year, the Royals were my sort of out there pick, and it paid off. They made the playoffs. So this year, Tito, I'm a Tito believer. I've watched that guy for too long, and just being around that camp, it just felt like there was a vibe there of why not us.
Yeah, I mean, when you're getting brought in as an influential, inspirational speaker to every team that's down like 0-3 in a series, Tito seems to know how to get the job done when you're a big dog. Mark Feinsand, where can everyone find all your work?
MLB.com. All my writings are there. I appear on MLB Network fairly regularly to talk baseball. So those are the two places. And of course, when I'm not there, you can find me on X at Feinsand, just spewing out thoughts like my predictions, where you can then get on and yell at me and tell me how dumb I am. So bring it on. Always
just
welcome.
like this entire comment section of this video right now. It's great. There's people that are just sitting here trolling me for trying to live out a dream, and no big deal that it's like terrible of me, horrible for me to try to help people.
Congrats on Prop Queen, your newsletter, the podcast. Very excited for you. I've known you for a long time. Very happy to see you getting out and trying to live that dream. So good luck with everything.
Thanks, Mark, and thanks for bringing some professionalism and credibility to this show today. Mark Feinsand, make sure to check him out all over the MLB platforms. Thanks, Mark.
Thanks.
All right, best bets time. And I'm going to call this segment, and I have a friend of mine who's going to make me cooler graphics than this, but I'm going to call this Royal Locks. Royal Locks, and it'll be cooler when we have the graphics and it looks like really fancy. So we've got a couple minutes left. I'm only on for an hour because I have a life, and I'm going to go get a nice dinner on the owner of Billy's. Thank you, Joey, for inviting me to dinner tonight. We're going with friends. Don't worry. That's all it really is. Strikeout props. First, Diamondback starter Merrill Kelly. He's going up against the Cubs, and I absolutely love when you've got a high K rate team and Merrill Kelly, because last year he averaged just over 5 strikeouts a game against high K rate teams. The Cubs, they are one of those teams. They averaged just over 5 Ks a game last year. I know they haven't struck out much to start the season. It's coming. And Kelly at home, he's great. So take his over 4.5 Ks. Braves at Padres. We talked about this with mid-major Matt. Reynaldo Lopez taking his under 4.5 strikeouts. He went under this in both games against the Padres last year with 4 and 2. He pitches worse on the road. The Padres are an under or stay away team when it comes to strikeout props. They average just about 3.5 strikeouts a game against righty starters, and 61% of righty starters went under their strikeout prop when facing the Padres last year. So under on Lopez. Fishy line. We have not discussed the fishy line today. It is the Seattle Mariners. They moved minus 148 to minus 134 against Seattle, despite their ace Luis Castillo being on the mound. That's very weird, just like yesterday with the Diamondbacks facing the Cubs, and the Cubs ended up winning outright. I'm looking at the Athletics tonight, guys. Castillo's fastball velocity has been down the last few years. His ERA has been up the last few years. Jeffrey Springs, do not sleep on him. I actually covered him in minor league baseball, 3.27 ERA and 7 starts last season. He did miss a bulk of the year, but his best start was last year against Seattle, where he punched out 9 in a 3-2 win. The Mariners, MLB worst, 213 versus lefties last season. So keep that in mind for why that line moved so much. NBA action is on the newsletter. I don't really have a best bet, but you heard Hakeem say Tyler Kolek is his over assists. There's a lot of stats on the Prop Queen newsletter. Go to thepropqueen.com, subscribe today. It's all just stats like we talked about with LaMelo Ball being out and Jalen Brunson being out and how the Cavs do on the second leg of a back-to-back. You could go and check all that out there. Thank you, everybody, for joining today on the first ever Prop Queen Pod. I am so happy to have you all. We will be back Monday. It's Monday through Friday on all these different platforms at Prop Queen Sports. Make sure to stay here 5 to 6 p.m. Eastern time throughout the week and check out the newsletter. See you guys on Monday. Have a great weekend and good luck with your bets.